Caitlin Moran is a feminist,
Mm.
and she's been a feminist for a long time.
Mhm.
And I remember many years ago, like reading her feminist agitprop and thinking, okay, well, I probably did videos in response to it and things like that.
Mm.
And
'Cause you're
she's,
a proud feminist yourself.
I am, and she has turned around on this from the position of someone who has won the game and said, maybe we should help out the losers. The losers obviously being men. And so now she's trying to understand why men are losing. And I just thought we'd go through some of it because I think it's quite amusing.
Go for it.
Well, before we begin, I think men and women are different.
Me too.
Crazy.
No,
Mad.
just like, who knew?
Yeah. Well, actually, that's a great question. Who knew? Well, it turns out that 5,000 years ago, they knew, as the Sumerians wrote a story down called the Epic of Gilgamesh, which is really about two guys struggling with mortality. And so it's very interesting how they knew, even back then, that men and women are different. And so we spent 4 hours talking about this, basically. But it's sort of our epic of this epic. But it's a really great story, and I definitely insist you go and check out our breakdown of it, because honestly, this is the best work we've ever done, I think. So anyway, let's go on to Caitlin Moran. So Caitlin says 5 years ago, she started saying this, right? It's 5. So feminism has won that long ago, right? Feminism conquered the West at least 5 years ago, and it's been downhill ever since, frankly. But anyway, she says the future of feminism should be women helping men.
Well, I'm not a feminist, so I couldn't.
It's just interesting, isn't it? Suddenly it's like looking down upon the peasants.
She's middle class, though. I would say the future of feminism should be trying to eradicate the world of porn. Like, if you want to save society, if you want to save relationships.
That's a very conservative position.
Well, if you want to save relationships, I'm not. Look, I'm a free speech absolutist. I think that when it comes to porn, I think there is a case to say that it is harmful,
Yes.
both for those who view it and those who have to live amongst people that watch copious amounts of it. I think it's really damaging. It's the reason that Cardi B did WAP.
Oh.
It's a pornification of our culture. So I would say that maybe that would save men a lot quicker.
It'd probably help women as well.
100%.
If they weren't just degraded into pornographic objects.
Absolutely. And also I think it would make girls think that actually there is a choice of how to woman. And that isn't either be some sort of porn star or have your breast cut off and pretend that you're not a woman at all.
Yeah, there's a healthy middle ground here, which again, it's just very traditional to say you could be respectable and admired by men without being degraded by them.
I personally think this is her distraction to stop talking about the fact that so many men pretend to be women, because she doesn't discuss it.
She doesn't, but honestly, I think what it is that she's in her 40s now and she's got some sons, and she's watching them grow up, and she's like, hang on a second, everyone seems to hate my sons for being white and male. I think that, oh God, what's gone on? Hang on a second, why are they being persecuted? And it's like, yeah, you never saw it until it happened to someone you care about, but you were doing it your entire career. And she admits this as well.
No, I talk to feminists a lot. I'm not one, and they will say what they don't want men to be, and I'm like, okay, great. What do you want them to be? Like, because I want my husband to go downstairs if there's a noise, right?
You'd like him to be a man.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want my sons to both treat their girlfriends with respect. So we've just been on holiday as a family, and the two girlfriends of my sons are like 21 and 20, and their girlfriends came with us, and they're respectful and lovely and just really decent boys. But that's been really difficult, because actually decent boys from some groups of boys in school will, if you're decent, then you can deserve a kicking, but you don't want to be feminine as a boy. You don't want to be weak.
No.
But you don't want to be, I don't know what we want from these young men, although my kids have managed it.
But that's, no, I think you're completely on the money. But notice that feminism doesn't know what it wants for women either. But it's actually got no life plan for women as women. It's got a life plan for women as kind of as aspirational men. It's like, you need to become a CEO. You need to become strong and independent and empowered, and you need to beat the boys at their own game. It's like, okay, but what do women do as women? How does that translate into the kind of dress that a woman wears in order to command a room? None of the actual the textual as a woman emanates at all in feminism. And so it's no wonder these women are like, I'll become a whore then. So
It's also a big fat lie. Like loads of the ways feminism talks about women.
oh yeah. Totally.
It's just a lie when they say, oh, some brave woman will come into a conversation. I couldn't wait to get back to work. Well, why do you have kids then? Like as soon as they're 6 months old, I was so bored at home. Well, you were doing it wrong.
Get back in the cage, wagey. Like what? Yeah, exactly. I can't. Yeah, exactly. You're doing it wrong if literally sitting in front of a fluorescent screen and typing all day for someone else's profit was your goal in life.
Yeah.
That's not men's goal in life.
No.
Men do it because they have other reasons.
Yeah.
They want to support their wife and kids, and so they're prepared to make the sacrifice. It's not what they wanted.
But also women who talk like that have great jobs, well-paid, great jobs.
They have email
that is
jobs.
Not.
That's what they have. They have jobs where they just email people.
Well, yeah, probably.
That's no. It is. I'm in HR.
Well, they're not
blah,
stacking shelves, are they?
Exactly.
They're not doing a crappy job. And when I remember in the last election, everyone was like, "Hey, we'll support full-time childcare from 6 months." I'm like, that's horrendous.
Yeah.
Support the women to stay at home. Do tax breaks. Do something that actually helps.
That'd be wonderful. Because my wife stays at home, and I'd love a tax break.
Yeah, I bet you would.
I would. Yeah.
Studios.
Yeah, I know. Jesus. Please, Tony Blair. Anyway, so she basically says, look, women have feminism to help themselves, but men don't have any framework or network at all. So there's no way for men to sort of cooperate and be men and support each other. It's like, yeah, because feminism literally went out of its way to destroy it. I mean, that was exactly the first thing that feminism went after was working men's clubs, because they're like, well, these are old boys networks, aren't they? And in a way, they're right. These are how men gain trust with other men in order to be able to do business with them. You become familiar with Frank, who's always in the corner, and you have chats with him. He's like, I've got a thing that I'm doing. So, I can help that. And suddenly you've got this network. And yeah, that does exclude women.
Yeah.
But that's what a male space is.
Well, in some of Europe, they've got saunas, as they call them. They've got saunas, and they're like male only. So basically, you can have a good bonding session with your penis out. But they have women only sessions. They have male only sessions. Yeah. And I would imagine it's quite. I mean, God, I'm too British. I would never in my wildest dreams do sauna sessions.
No, obviously.
Naked with anyone. But there's something about that's that tradition that's continued that maybe we never really had, because ours was often around alcohol or privilege.
But we had discrete locations that were for men and women.
Yeah.
And we obviously, because we're British, we weren't naked.
Well, now they've got your channel, right?
Oh, well, yeah, basically. That's what it's a coping mechanism for the fact that feminism destroyed society and made everything unisex. It's like, but I don't want everything to be unisex.
In many ways, I think there were some feminist goals that absolutely had to happen.
Sure.
100% had to happen. There's some great things that happened.
Sure.
But it's almost like all other civil rights that it got to a point, and then you weren't really fighting something that you could see where you had an end goal. So, do we want to eradicate strip clubs from high streets? I pretty much would. Yes, I think they're horrible. That would be something.
Mm-hmm.
But to then sort of talk about rape culture, as opposed to, well, let's get rid of some elements of rape that we can see and name, and then we can say we've conquered, we've achieved that goal. I think it became just far too loose. So,
but it also became an industry. So it's people whose entire careers are being feminists.
Yes.
And now, I mean, what are they going to do? Be like, yeah, okay, well, job done, guys. I'm going to retire now. They're not going to do that.
Well, because it was a dishonest industry as well, and it wasn't really built on proper values. Those same women who were supposed to be championing women's rights will now champion trans rights. And also pimps.
Yep.
So they'll be saying sex work is work. They'll be they've got this new thing, a bit like Stonewall is now not really for gays and lesbians.
Yeah, they never talk about gays anymore.
No, I don't think a lot of feminism is really for women anymore anyway.
No. But anyway, 5 years later, Caitlin Moran is still talking about this. So she's made some progress. Mm-hmm. She tweeted out 5 years ago, hello, men of Twitter. What do you think makes your man life difficult? And one reply, she says, came up time and time again. Is this a trick? Are you asking this so you can laugh at us? Is this a feminist trap? Are you going to retweet all of these with the reply, look at the men complaining about nothing, while women to continue to endure all the true suffering? And it's just very interesting how, like, that, I mean, that's something that feminists in particular have done for a long time. They've been utterly contemptuous of men as a class because they have looked at the board of, a Fortune 500 company and gone, well, they're mostly men, aren't they? Therefore, men must generally be doing brilliantly. And this very low resolution view of the world allows her to come to a conclusion like this. She says, boys and men have become so used to being the conversational whipping boy and punchline to jokes, they could not believe a feminist writer was genuinely asking them to talk about their problems. Who can believe it?
Well, I think that's why the likes of, well, your success, Jordan Peterson.
Andrew Tate and all that, yeah.
Oh, no, not Andrew Tate. I can't touch that.
Of course you don't like Andrew Tate.
No, I don't like Andrew Tate.
I don't like him either.
But I've heard him look, I've heard Andrew Tate talk literally about having sex with women and then using that against them to be. He's an exploitative. I sort of had my doubts because people kept saying this stuff about him, and I was like, well, maybe it's the same as the other stuff. Well, the same as maybe all the stuff they say about you, right?
Yeah.
So I was thinking, well, that's. I don't know if I buy it. And then I've just seen too much video evidence of stuff from his own mouth where I think, oh, you're everything that they say.
He actually is. I mean, he got rich running a brothel. So I'm not. But the point is,
but there's a vacuum, right, of decency.
Exactly. Well, yeah, and it's not even decency really. It's a vacuum of masculinity that he is filling. He is saying, look, I'm a macho man. I've made loads of money. I've got women under control. I've got all these cars. I have achieved the peak consumerist materialist life that a man is able of achieving at this point. Basically, you want to be like me. And a lot of young men are like, yeah, I want to live like that guy.
So what is masculinity?
Well, that's a great question. And we could probably not have the time to do it now, but we could definitely have a conversation about it another time.
I would love to.
Because it's something that I've been forced to understand. But essentially, it is to be the person of last resort.
And how does a man get to do that in 2023? I think that's the...
Well, that's the even deeper question. Because what you're asking there is, how do we restore the position of honor that men once held that made them want to be the person of last resort?
Well, another war might help.
No, actually, I think women knocking off feminism might really help, actually. Women, because I mean, like, actually, you're very traditional in your view of what men should be and what women should be, actually.
I think most women are. Most heterosexual women are.
They absolutely are. And that's why heterosexual women need to say, feminists, piss off. Because actually, when there's a bump downstairs, I want my husband to go and do it. I want him to want to go and do it.
Yeah.
But do you think that the average millennial soy boy is like, oh, I can't wait to go down and find out what the problem is? No, probably not. Right. And so, and it's this degrading of the self-respect of men by women that has that has brought us to this point, and why Caitlin Moran is just like, well, why don't we just give men feminism? Won't feminism help men? It's like, no, feminism has been what has destroyed men to this point. And actually, if you want to ennoble them again, you have to say, well, actually, there is a place for men in a hierarchy that is actually at the top of the hierarchy. And that's proper and appropriate, actually. So you have to say, well, the man should be in charge of the company, right? You actually kind of have to go down that road. And I realized I knew bringing this up would be something that would be unusual to say to you.
Well, I have a few companies myself, and I certainly wouldn't have a man running my company.
That's just like a very broad way of describing what I'm trying to describe, right? But to say that it's appropriate for the man to be the breadwinner, for example.
Well, you said something to me the last time I was here, and I did think about it all the way home, which was that women are attracted to men, and it's a money thing. So women want to be comfortable, etc.
It's a status thing.
And I was thinking status over anything else. So if I met my husband and he was a really successful artist, but not successful with money, but just like everybody thought he was talented and wonderful, and he was driven and ambitious, I would find that really attractive. Instead, he's got a great job and runs companies, it's fine. But he didn't when I met him. And I remember thinking one day when I just met him and I fell head over heels in love, and I was thinking, when he got in his posh car, I was like, would I have liked him if he was
unemployed?
No, I don't think I would.
Of course not.
No,
right? Because
I don't think he'd have liked me either.
Maybe not, but this is how it goes the other way, right? Because there are loads of women who write loads of articles going, I earn £100,000 a year. I'm the CEO of a Fortune 500 company, blah, blah. Why can't I find a boyfriend? And it's like, because men would date a homeless woman, if she fulfilled other criteria. You're approaching it with a woman's criteria and saying, well, I fulfill all of the criteria that I expected, but men don't want that. It's like, no, men don't want that. Who told you they did?
So they want to be needed.
Yes.
Men.
Yeah. Men.
And women want to be needed too, but we have different ways of fulfilling their.
Absolutely. But men also want to be respected in that way, right? And so they want a woman who is financially they're inferior. So they want to be the person who is the person of last resort. When she's like, oh, I really can't afford to go on holiday this year, they can be like, well, actually, I can help with that. We can go on holiday this year, and she'll be grateful and thankful to him, and she'll respect him and look up to him because he was able to provide something. And without that, men can't really become men. And so demanding this kind of gender parity and sort of unisex society is a barrier to men being the things that women want to date.
Well, how about Thatcher then?
Well, Thatcher wasn't an attractive woman.
She was great.
She was very impressive. Yeah. But I would never have gone out with her.
You wouldn't have gone out with her?
No.
That is an exclusive, people.
I would never have dated Thatcher. But I mean, I had a lot of respect for her, obviously. But it's obviously this isn't like for every individual case. There are going to be, those, particular people who are differently inclined. But as a general rule, I think this is what men want. I think this is what women want as well.
Yeah.
They want to look up to their men and think of them as respectable, right? Because that's what the social status is. Other people respect them, and so you can respect them as well.
Yeah. I guess men don't necessarily want people to respect their wives. They probably want them to like their wives.
Well, I mean,
I don't mean definitely respecting the status.
Yeah, they definitely don't want their wives to have high status. They want themselves to have the status, right? But they want them to be likable and to be seen as a package, right? That your wife is a part of you, and the sort of the thing that is your public persona.
Yeah.
I suppose,
I mean, clearly nobody likes me, so my husband can't. That's not a need that he has. People will like his wife.
But men are looking for a woman who will be a good wife, right, rather than a good husband. And a lot of these feminist women are like, but I've become the husband. It's like, okay, great, good luck. You need to find a wife.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's always quite uncomfortable, and I appreciate, and I would love to come back and maybe have a couple more sort of people and have a really thrash out what is it broadly that we both require. And also I've talked quite often about, look, if you find someone that you fall in love with at 25, have children before you're 30.
Oh, definitely.
Like, don't wait until you're 35, 40 years old to have your kids. And then you have to, because I was 27 and then I was 34 when I had my last, so I've got 4 children. But the beautiful thing is that my husband and I will still be quite like young enough to have a really great life when they all leave. And actually at the moment it looks like they'll all stay and we'll be paying for all of them and all of their kids and everything forever. But yeah, there's a lot of women that think you can fit it all in, and it's just a big fat lie. You just can't. And most of us want to be great mothers, unless you've got this an amazing career and you can probably afford to put things in place that mean you get to do both. But that's very few people.
But that's the thing about feminism, isn't it? It treats motherhood as a kind of obstacle to the actualization of the woman.
Yes.
And it's like, no. Like, I've never met a woman who doesn't actually want to have kids. Even those ones who say, I don't want to have kids. Because, of course, when me and my wife take our newborn, I've got a 3-month-old baby at the moment.
You don't even look tired.
That's because I have a wife at home. But like whenever you meet one of those sorts of women, you can see that nature is like saying, look, there's a pull inside of you that when you see a baby and you don't have a baby and you're coming on 40.
Yeah, I'm not buying it. I'm not buying it. And I know far too many women that then get past the point where they could have children and then they regret it.
Yes.
And I don't know, like, it's supposed to be a taboo that loads of women regret having children but don't talk about it. I think that's absolute lies. I don't believe it. Clearly some people aren't cut out to be mothers and that maybe they shouldn't have had children.
Sure, but that's going to be a small percentage.
A very small percentage. And actually it's for most people who have children, your life goes from one thing to that second my son was born, my life was forever changed for the better by 1,000,000%.
Yeah, that's another thing, isn't it, as well? Because this reluctance for women to have children seems to be a desire to live in an extended adolescence. Like they fail to understand that no, look, there's a path to every human life, and there always has been since the very beginning of time. Because as you age, you enter into different phases of your life, and you become a different person. When you become a parent, you're not the adolescent. When you become old enough that the children leave, or that you become a grandparent, you enter again into a new phase of your life, and you need to come to terms with it. This is why. I mean, you know what Madonna looks like now, right? It's horrific. It's horrific looking at Madonna's face. It's like you couldn't let your youth go, and now you're a freak.
I know, and it's such a shame. It's such a shame. I mean, look, she's always
been Madonna, but come on, like where she's got to now. It's like, Granny, please stop. Just please stop.
Yeah, it's pretty horrific.
Yeah, but this is the thing. Feminism has got nothing in the way of a life plan for women, and all it can do with men is stigmatize them, and so men aren't allowed to have their own life plan because it upsets the feminists who are for some reason in control of bloody everything.
Yeah. Well, I guess any ideology, whether it's feminism or trans activism, even like whatever ideology, you need to have a goal where that is a final point.
Yeah.
That you've achieved what you set out to do.
What's the victory condition?
Yeah. And I would say at the moment, feminism of old used to be like, hey, there's an obstacle. Let's find a way around it. Sure. Feminism now is like, there's an obstacle. Wow, there's an obstacle. Oh, look at the obstacle. Oh, there's an obstacle. That's it.
But also, there's just no limit to the obstacles, right? It's like they don't know what they're asking for now. So we want equality of men with men. It's like, well, now you're superior to men. I mean, this is what Caitlin Moran's entire thesis is. Well, hang on a second. I mean, she literally, in fact, I've got a couple of clips. We'll play a couple of clips just because they're genuinely hilarious from like the position of the serf man who doesn't understand why his betters don't realize that they're his betters. Let's watch.
The problem that boys have is they don't have the ladies' toilets. Like, that's the main strength that women have. If you go into the ladies' toilets, if you've got any problem, you can talk to a complete stranger and they'll be like, here's a tampon, you should leave him, give me a hug, let's go on the dance floor. That's not happening in the men's toilets. And that's the microcosm of where the difference between being a man and a woman. We talk about our problems. We do. We come up with solutions. Boys feel they've got to keep quiet or just be cool or just banter. They can't have that kind of, I'm in trouble, help me, that girls do.
That's true. The banter thing's true. And it was so, again, when I was reading this, that thing of when you were saying, when men go out with one another and they come back and you say to them, well, how's, what the house move, is that going well?
Yeah.
What about the wee dog that wasn't well? What about the wee girl that was ill? And they go, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
I'm like, you've been with that fella for 4 hours. Why did you not find things out?
What have you been talking about for the last 4 hours?
I don't agree with her at all. I had workmen in my house. They all, oh, how's your mum? Oh, she's still in the wheelchair. When's she coming out of hospital? They were really supportive and lovely to each other. They had really lovely conversations. And also...
Can I?
Yeah.
That's because there's a woman present.
No. This was the three of them. This was nothing to do with me. I didn't know about their parents.
But you were present to see it, right?
Oh, because otherwise, if there's no woman in the house, they're having a different conversation.
Yeah, every gendered space becomes very different when one member of the opposite gender is introduced to it. It becomes very, very different. And she's not wrong, though, right there, where she's like, well, men don't have these spaces away from women where they can actually be themselves. And so, but notice how she's just like, well, you need to have a woman's toilets and talk about your feelings. Like, that's not how men process anything.
But then they would be women. So,
exactly.
Like, you can't save men by making them women.
Exactly. But that's literally the only framework that she's got, because she doesn't understand that actually men are different and they have their own sort of hierarchy of how things are supposed to be done. Like, they never understand why boys fight. Like, they do not understand why boys fight, but boys know why boys fight, and boys know why they become friends after they've fought. And this is just totally alien to a woman's mind.
Suicide rates, and you might not know the answer to this question, are they worse in 2023, 22 for men than they were in the 1920s?
Yeah, definitely. The suicide rate's just been going up.
And is that can't be to do with well, it might be to do. You might argue it's to do with feminism, but men certainly aren't talking less than they. Are we saying that men talked more or had? And I don't mean share problem and
men feel suicidal when they feel useless. Right.
Right. Okay.
Powerlessness is the worst thing for a man to experience, because women live in a kind of social web where all of the circumstances of the society are kind of geared to helping women at all times, right? And there have been women who have transitioned to become men who and we covered this again a couple of weeks ago, that they feel lonely and afraid because there's no one to help them, because men are expected to do everything and help themselves, right?
But then that's what you want.
Yeah, no, that's completely what you want, right? But with that comes a form of honor that feminism deliberately stripped away on the basis that they're men, right? So men would have been self-reliant or work together in small and trusted groups to achieve certain things in order that people could rely on them, and they would be respected for being reliable, right? And so when in the 1920s you have this kind of society, men are fine with that. That's what they want. But now that you don't have that, the men aren't relied on for things. They're not allowed to achieve these sort of positions of honor, and they feel lonely and useless and not worthy. And so eventually you do just kill yourself.
So what's worse for men, the recession of manufacturing jobs in this country, which means like regular men were going and building and making and using their physical power in order to do stuff, or feminism? Because I wonder actually whether the change in structure of our society and jobs, where, you know, in a car factory where you had to lift heavy stuff, there weren't a lot of women. So those were male-only spaces.
Yeah. And these were good for men to have.
Yeah.
These were very good for
men. Manufacturing, could argue, it's really...
and, you know, suicide rates always go up in a depression because the men realize that they can't provide for their families like they feel they're expected to do so, and then they kill themselves because they feel powerless, right? And that's not good, obviously. But to have that as being the norm in society, where they don't even need to provide for people, is actually really bad for men.
Really bad.
Yeah. That's the purpose in life for the average man.
Yeah.
But that's how they get and that's why not allowing men to see their children after a divorce, it crushes them. So, well, hang on a second. Those people are supposed to rely on me. Yeah. And now they don't rely on me at all.
Family courts are horrendous.
It's horrific, yeah. And so, yeah, these ladies do not understand any of this. You know, all they can do is say, well, why aren't men being like women? And in fact, I've got one more clip that I want to play. Andrew Tate, yeah.
The rise of Andrew Tate, these boys who have just heard people for the last 10 years going, typical men. Like typical straight white men. And so someone like Andrew Tate goes along and goes, no, be proud to be a boy. Boys should win. And suddenly you see these boys being radicalised.
And it's so toxic. I mean, it's like what you say in the book. We've got Beyonce and men have got Andrew Tate.
Yes, I know. And we're winning. So I understand why boys say, you know, women are winning.
Poisonous.
Wow, I don't like Beyonce very much. I think she's terrible for women, but there you go.
But look at the attitude. Andrew Tate says boys should be winning. And she's like, oh, that's so toxic. No, boys should be winning. Boys should win. Men should win. Like the most manly thing a man can do is win in a battle. You know, literally fighting on a war. You know, that's dying in battle. That's the most manly thing a man can do. And she's like, oh, that's toxic. No, of course, you as a very privileged posh woman think that's toxic, but actually, that's what young men dream of.
But don't. To be fair, don't most people want to? I mean, maybe women aren't so competitive. I'm quite a competitive woman.
You are unusual, I think, in that regard. But most women are not as competitive as men, and everyone knows this. You know,
which
mountains
is
of literature.
Fine.
Yeah, exactly.
What do we want them not to win? Like that's the alternative.
She said, no, that's toxic. That's bad. You know, and it's like, no, boys should win. They should compete, and we should have healthy competitions.
Yeah.
You know, they should be playing a lot of sports. They should be doing whatever. Yeah. You know, and it's because of this feminization where it's like, oh no, competition's bad. But Andrew Tate's like, no, boys should win.
Jo Williams, I'm sure you're familiar with her work. She's written about the feminization of education.
I'm not familiar with that.
She writes for Spiked.
Right.
So she's pretty great. I think you'd love her.
I probably would, yeah.
What she's written about. But the feminization of education, which is all the taking away competition and boys having to sit down for long spells, sit still for long spells in education, and as opposed to going out and touching stuff and
just education used to be gender segregated and probably was better for it if the decline in standards.
Girls did better.
Boys probably did. I mean, look at the standards that we're under now. Like the results coming out of schools. It's terrible. My oldest daughter was failing in her maths class. I was like, okay, well, what's the average in the class? And it was something like 18% in this entire class, where the pass was supposed to be 65. And it's like, oh my God.
One of my kids did a college course, and at the end of it, he didn't pass because they'd allowed him to change his final project, right? And so I phoned them and I was like, you failed. You failed him, and you didn't. At no point have you reached out and said, "Hey, did you know he's changed his project to me?" And we were sort of talking to him about it, but I have no idea that it was going to penalise him. And I said, "How many other kids didn't get?" And they said, "Oh, we're really proud. 40% got through." And I went, "So you failed over half the class."
40%.
God, I said, "How can you say that with confidence?"
It's
I'd
mad,
be
isn't it?
embarrassed. Yeah.
But this is the thing. So, like, essentially, men need to compete. They are different to women, and they need to be respected for winning, right? And feminism, these women, they view that as toxic, and that's really unhealthy. And so, I'm just basically, they do not understand men, and their attempts to help men. Literally, one of the things she says in a previous article, right? She says, "Those wives, mothers, sisters, daughters, and friends need to tell men." Your problems aren't boring. It's okay to make a fuss. We won't accuse you of emotional man flu. We love you and worry about you. Please use these tools, feminism, we have invented to solve your problems now. It's like that will destroy men even worse than it already has.
I teach my kids just to be bloody stoic.
Yeah.
Like, sort yourself out.
Yep.
If you come up with a problem, I'm not saying if they want to talk to me about something, I would shut them down. I absolutely wouldn't. I think we have quite a healthy kind of you try and solve your own problem, you come up with your own solution, and when you've tried to do that, then you can seek help.
Yeah.
Or you can talk to someone about it, but not every 5 minutes is about, are you happy? Are you happy? Are you happy?
Yeah.
Are you happy? Like, no, you won't be.
But it's not just that. Men and women process problems differently. I mean, a lot of the time, men, and I speak from personal experience, but also from a lot of my friends, when your wife comes to you and she complains to you about a problem, she doesn't actually want you to propose solutions.
No.
She just wants to be heard, right? Because, maybe it's something you can't solve or something like that. But that's not how men work at all. And so what she's saying is, men, why don't you just talk your feelings out? It's like, because that's not how it works. What you want, and this is what normally happens, is when you have like a sort of brotherhood of young men who are friends, really close friends, they'll solve each other's problems. They'll actually fix the thing for you. And then that's how you show that you care about each other. It's not the same. It's totally different. And they don't understand. They're just going to hurt men even more.
If you appreciated that segment from the podcast of the Lotus Eaters, you can go to lotuseaters.com to get access to all the premium content that's on the site, such as the premium articles, this one on Jonah Hill and why men can't marry mermaids, with an audio track for Silver Tears. If you'd like to find out what else is being put out, you can follow on Getter at lotuseaters_com on Getter. Thank you and goodbye.